What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Other Side of the Firewall podcast, where we talk about the latest and greatest in cybersecurity news, as well as we highlight those movers and shakers and glass ceiling breakers, those people of color who made it to the other side of the proverbial firewall. My name is Ryan Williams, and as always, I'm joined by Shannon Tynes.
What's up? What's up?
And then we also have full team roster, so we have Chris Abicon.
What's going on, everybody?
And Daniel Acevedo.
How's it going, guys?
What's going on? So, welcome to our weekly slate. So Monday and Tuesday, our I got to stop going that route. And then Wednesday, discussion. Thursdays, Ask a CISSP. This one will be with Dr. Hollis. So he is a 30-year Navy, retired Navy veteran. Great conversation. So definitely tune in for that one. And then Fridays, everything else. So movies, books, games, all that good stuff. But without further ado, I give it to Shannon.
All right, everybody. This one comes from Forbes.com, written by Keith Farazi. And the discussion for this one is when cybersecurity breaches are inevitable, it's time to call for a new approach. So this kind of is something that we kind of approach on the show, right? Like we talk about it's going to happen. It's a matter of mitigating your risk, right? Like, so how do you keep it to as low a chance as possible is what we talk about. Because we know like the podcast wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all the different cybersecurity incidents and things of that nature, that happen. We know it is an inevitability. Wow, I got it out. It was a struggle, but that's kind of what they hit on in the article here. And the point I think is up for discussion is how do you try to prepare better? And they talk about this, and this is at a TED conference in Vancouver this year that they discussed this, right? So like as much as we talked about it here, like Ryan, I got to ask, like, did we not get the invite from the podcast to talk about this? Because we brought this up numerous times before, you know what I mean? Like I think they forgot about us, you know what I mean?
It was an obvious snub. I don't
obvious, right? Like, hey, I was hoping to see you, Kanye, somebody on this TED Talk, be like, yo, the other side of the FW is the best podcast on the best podcast on this in the world, and then shrug and just walk off. Like that's what I was hoping to see. But no, like the point of discussion here is they talk about different things, right? Like so it's cyber resilience is kind of what they're talking about, and how to be resilient in this ever-changing world. And they talk about the different technologies, as we have as well, that are making it a lot harder to combat the different things that are out there, right? So they're talking about AI, which we talked about last week. We talked about me being a fuddy-duddy and not wanting it to come as soon as it is. Quantum computing, how I think it'll be here sooner than what we think. And we're just trying to get ahead of these things, right? So like a lot of cybersecurity in this day and age is being more reactive than proactive, right? And that's what they're trying to address is how do you be proactive to this, which is very much a need, right? So they actually talk in the article, they talk about the 4 different, I don't want to call them pillars, but I'm trying to trying to relay it exactly as they said it, but they talked about different things to look out for, right? And it was planning, practice, proactive detection, right, and partnerships. And what's a little weird about this is the partnerships one. I thought they would concentrate more on like outside partnerships, which I understand, right? But they kind of reference in here is the partnerships between like the board and the different departments, that deal with cybersecurity and IT, which I thought was a little odd, right? Like we know that sometimes they don't listen, but I didn't think that was something that needed to be stressed. I figured that was something that was automatically taken as a given. Yes, like on the board, you have to have that relationship. Go ahead, Daniel.
I will interject there, and I will say that's a good focus to approach because I think there's a loss sometimes of how cybersecurity policy and compliance, information security, and IT, and then the rest of the top level departments like HR, business development, how they all really intersect, and how important it is to have a very lean and direct conversation, and for everybody to be on the same table with a voice to understand what's going on in the business at the moment, what are the big projects, how they're being addressed, what program management or how it's being pushed through the business, to see where IT will have issues or shortcomings, to see where cybersecurity needs to interject and be like, hey, wait, you guys aren't looking at this and this is a must, to see where the policy and compliance comes in. It's like, hey, we can't do that because of these reasons. Those conversations in most business don't even happen sometimes. Whereas then products come out and then you have all these issues on the back end. I've seen it, and not like airing dirty laundry. I haven't seen it in the sense that, hey, things were bad, but I've experienced it where it was like, hey, oh, we didn't realize you guys needed this, or this was a part of something that you were involved. And then we fixed the processes and we had those meetings, or we were invited to the meetings afterwards. But it happens. It happens in all businesses of all walks of life. So I agree with what they're saying there.
This is where this podcast is great because of our different experiences, right? So because I've spent so much time in DoD, that has not been my experience, right? Like you have to come through me, or us, I should say, right? I shouldn't say me. You have to come through us if you're gonna bring out something new. You're gonna bring a new program in, new system, new network, whatever. We have to be seen. It's not gonna happen without us. You're not even gonna get it in the door without it being looked at, right? This is where we shine, right? Like having those differences in how we do work, and that's great, right? Like so for me, I was like, man, that just seems standard to me, right? Because of my experience. You've seen it different, right?
And I want to interject there too. That is exactly why hiring veterans is so awesome. Just saying, hey, for all those 700,000 jobs, hire some vets that have experience in a mature organization that has all these processes in place. Because a lot of the times it's not just an email to your finance person to buy a product. You got to go through an approval process to get something implemented. You got to make sure you have to have a S4, a logistics team to document things for records, right? You need that kind of thing. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry to interject again.
No, it's good. Like this is good. This is great. Like this is what this is. This is the discussion, right? This is what we talk about. Bring up a point, bring it up. This is what makes it so great. But no, like the different experiences. Like this is again. I was unaware that that's how it's going out there. From Daniel's experience. You know what I mean? Possibly Ryan's experience. Now, Chris, your
It's the
experience.
Wild West out here.
It's a Wild West out
here, Shannon.
Wild West.
I'm just like I don't see that. But it's. So the fact that they are putting that in partnerships and saying, yes, it does need to be discussed, that's a good thing because they see it as well, right? They see it as a problem with it not being addressed. But no, this is a good way to do things, right? And this was like the talk itself was with CHROs, Chief Human Resource Officers, and CIOs, right? So those are the people you need, right? Like that's your C-suite. Those are the ones that need to be educated to this, to be like, hey, this is what's going on below the ivory tower, right? This is what you're saying no to based off just an email and not actually talking with somebody, right? These are things that need to be addressed. Like it's just I don't know. I think it was good that they had this TED Talk is what they call it, right? They still do TED Talks. I don't hear about them as much as I used to, but yeah, I mean it's very much needed. But yeah, those four things are what they're talking about on the planning, the practice, all that. And the practice was one that I was like, yes, you got to do that as well because again, from the DoD perspective, right? Like we have to practice different drills, every so often. Like we get inspected on that stuff. Like, can you prove that you actually did this? And it could be minor, right? Like it could just be a tabletop even, right? Because there's some stuff you just don't want to do. You don't want to throw a virus onto your network, right? Like that's not really what you want to do. But like this is the steps that would happen if we did this. Even to tabletop it and talk about it so that nobody is left in the dark on what needs to happen. But Chris, what's your thoughts on this, man?
So what's cool about this article is that the first thing I thought when he talked about the four, I guess the 4 P's: planning, practice, practice detection, and partnerships. The first thing that came to mind, just based on the job that I do, is a framework, specifically NIST cybersecurity framework, right? So if you take into account the domains within NIST cybersecurity framework version 2.0, right? You've got identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And then the addition to that, and this is where I'm alluding to with what Daniel was just saying, governance, right? So the governance layer with the partnerships and really having that, top-down approach to cybersecurity rather than bottom-up, where it's like, it's not, hey, C-suite, we need cybersecurity, right? It's actually coming from the top, where the top is aware of everything, or at least at a high level. They've got visibility of the cybersecurity landscape within their organizations. So I think the big one here was, like Shan was saying, testing, because you're right. Like not a lot of companies think about the after the fact. We just got breached. Crap. How do we recover? And recover is actually part of NIST cybersecurity framework, where you talk about an incident recovery plan and how to execute it, how to communicate it, and really how to bounce back, as the article says. And then really, as like kind of alluding back to CSF, they've got to respond as well, right? How do you analyze the incident? How do we report it, and then how do we manage it, and how do we mitigate it? So really, really cool article. I like how they bring in and they explain a lot of like the way that they structured the way that the gentleman wrote the article. It's very structured, like for most organizations, right? That don't speak the NIST language, like that me, Ryan, you guys speak, right? We speak policy, we speak governance, right? Our military experience, we speak on doctrine, right? We have orders to do something, and we're just programmed that way, right? But on the other side of the house, on the other side of the firewall, it's not like that, right? It's about making money. It's about profits. It's about, hey, how can we engage with our customers? How can we have better interactions with our customers? How can we make money, right? It's not something that governments they have fixed budgets, right? And an additional fact too is I want to talk about reputational damage. How do we recover reputationally from such a thing? So depending on the size of your organization, that could mean a whole host of different ways, whether it's engagement on social media, engaging with your shareholders, engaging with the owners of your company, your clients, right? And being open about it. There's so many ways that you can do that. And again, every incident is different, and how an organization trains, I think this is where military DoD comes in, train like you fight, right? So do those tabletop exercises, have a red team, like do a black hat, on a certain section of your business line or your information system, right? So train how you fight, perform tabletops, and really get an idea of what your organization has in place. With that said, Daniel, what are your thoughts?
Yep. Now you made a lot of good points. I'm gonna grab that ball from you as a good assist.
Yeah.
You said a couple of things there about governments, and how, we come from the DoD environment, especially our job career field. We can talk NIST 800-53, 171. We can talk RMF process. We can talk like all the policy stuff at a high level, low level, like get in the greens. But the last thing you said on that topic was on the private industry side, though, what does that mean to shareholders? What does that mean to profit margins? What does that mean to the business side? So this is where a lot of this TED talk comes from. I've seen it. Like, luckily, I had a VPGM. That guy did his business, grew it from a small business to a medium-sized business. It was growing larger. A larger corporation bought them, and he maintained the culture of that business. And it really was like a family, and it really was top down, right? He understood from the beginning the importance of bringing strong cybersecurity presence and a strong compliance and information security understanding. He empowered my department and the people I worked alongside and the FSO to really drive home training and messaging. And eventually the engineers and the people that worked there bought on. I feel like we had a really good cybersecurity grooming in that organization that didn't happen overnight, but with continued conversations, with continued explanation and understanding of why they couldn't do things, we were in a good place, right? Like, if something happened, it was going to happen regardless, but people understood who they needed to go to, proper chain of commands, how we could recover from things, the people that needed to be called in could go to action quickly. The thing is that doesn't happen a lot in organizations, let alone larger organizations, where there's still, I'll bring it back to the Warren Buffett comment, when you have messaging that's different, right, from a larger organization that's thinking about profit, they always bash IT and cybersecurity. And then all it takes is one negative, and I'm always a negative Nancy of the group, but all it takes is one negative comment and cutting of funding one time, and it could be a spiral in the opposite direction, where taking leaders in the cybersecurity field for this TED Talk and kind of thinking about what are the future threats is a good practice. Although I do think some of the stuff is a little sensationalized. Like, they talk about scaling in the cloud-based environment. Everything is hosted in the cloud right now. I think that's where all the major threats kind of come from right now. It's just highlighting how we're connecting and how everything is not on premises anymore, and everything belongs to either Amazon or one of these other hosting sites, which brings its whole slew of other issues and problems. Now, I do agree with Shannon, though. I think, my bad, somebody was going to say something?
Yeah. I was like, CrowdStrike.
yeah. For real. But I agree with you on one thing. I think the big computers, what do you call them? You said they're going to be here sooner than later.
Quantum computers.
Quantum.
I do think the quantum computer thing is something that people are ill prepared for, and I think companies kind of see it in writing with AI, but I think they're slow to understand how big of a thing this is going to be impacting 2 years from now, maybe a year from now, not even like 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I think a year from now, the kind of deep fakes and the issues AI in the hackers' hands can pose is going to be groundbreaking. And I don't think the companies and organizations out there really understand.
So couple things. No, go ahead. You still going. Keep going.
No, I was just going to say, like, getting people way smarter than me on the table to kind of come up with like the correct solutions sooner rather than later is the right way to go. But this article also is kind of written out kind of like me. It's like there's a lot of not negative, but kind of laying out the cards on the table. Like, it's going to be worse sooner than we realize. We really need to ramp up like yesterday.
So a couple things to what you guys said. I'm sorry, Ryan. I'm gonna jump in here again. But so first thing, Warren Buffett, I don't want that smoke. Daniel keeps coming after you. That is Daniel Acevedo. It's not me. I do not want that smoke. But the other thing to touch on what Daniel and Chris were talking about, though. So Chris, kind of what you were alluding to was public trust, right? So like losing public trust, right? That's a big thing. And when you're in the C-suite, you have to talk to them when it comes to, you have to relay it to them in a matter of money, right? Like I know that sucks. Like it should just be cybersecurity should stand on its own to be like, you should secure this for these purposes, but you have to bring it to money to them, right? So you can say, okay, from a public trust aspect, if we have a breach, right? If we have malware, or if we're paying out, right? Even if we have cyber insurance, right? That's going to take care of this for us, and we're going to pay millions of dollars out. The news that it happens in this day and age is going to spread so fast. It's going to be known so quick that when it comes to your shareholders that the C-suite is beholden to, right? Let's be honest here, right? Because that's what they're trying to do, right? People are going to invest in that company thinking they're going to get some dividends back to come to them based on how well you're managing the company. If that starts to fail, you're going to lose that, right? You're going to lose your job, granted with a golden parachute more than likely, right? Because that's how it works with these folks in the C-suite. But you have to make sure that trust is there, and you have to relay it to them in matters of money. Like, this is the money you can lose if we don't do this. If you cut this department, or if you don't invest in this department, even if you're going to outsource it to somebody that can actually handle it for you, right? You got to make that happen, and that's how you got to relay it to them.
No, absolutely. So, because I don't want to belabor the point, but I do have two things, if not three, right? I'm trying to balance in my head because you guys brought up such great points. So before I do that, please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you want to advertise, please hit me up, the other side, fw@gmail.com. But back to the point. So I think it's kind of twofold. So yes, we do have to make sure that we have proper defenses, their defense, all that good stuff. But it's a tough conversation to have with those people who are within power, is that, hey, this is inevitable, and we kind of have to have that discussion, right? It's uncomfortable. Like, the reason that we do these tabletops or these exercises and things of that nature is because one day this will happen. When I had the conversation with Miguel Clark, friend of the show, right? Miguel Clark is a GRC evangelist for armor defense. So please check out his episode of the Ask a CISSP if you have not already. But in it, he talks about from his background, right? So he's a retired FBI special agent supervisor who was on the cyber side of the house, and now he's in the private sector. And he talks about, like, within 6 years, you're gonna have a breach, right? Like, he does the math. He sits down and does the math with those people in the powers that be, as well as from his experience. These are things that could happen to you, and then it's just a matter of, like, how do we bounce back? Like, what does your resiliency look like, right? We have all these defenses, but if they get in, whether it be through insider threat or some other means, 0-day, what have you, how do we bounce back quickly? And that's always a tough conversation because people automatically think, like, oh, you plan to fail. Like, no, I'm not planning to fail. It's like when you said the P's, it reminded me of the Army, right? I had Mr. Tut told me the 5 P's. Like, shout out to Mr. Tut. Prior planning prevents piss poor performance. So that's it. The Army mantra. Like, you have to plan for these things because inevitably something is going to happen. Because you can't just say, like, I'm going to be protected forever. Like, we don't know what forever looks like. So, like, yeah, check out that discussion with Miguel Clark. It was really good. But then
I wonder, right, to your point, I wonder if it's just like a cyber or like people in our realm or what we work in, kind of that kind of thought process. Because my old CISO, shout out to him, Ernie Magniotti, he gave a talk at my job for insider threat or like, just cyber awareness to the people at my job. And the beginning of his talk, he talked about you need to come to the table from a thought process that you can't trust anything. Like that's where your mind needs to be in your day-to-day life, with like when you get emails and you get texts for all this
yeah,
phishing and all this, like you need to not trust anything, right? When you get something, trust your gut. If it doesn't sound right, it probably isn't. And what this guy is saying
so
is kind of like resonating that same kind of thing. But I just wonder if people that work in our realm kind of understand that, and then people that don't, maybe that's a hard pill to swallow. They just can't get that concept yet.
but I think that also comes from an IT mindset, right? Because we like to separate IT from cybersecurity because they are two different silos, right? They interact with each other. It's a marriage, but they're two different entities. Um, but when everything is going right, no one ever says, "Thank you, IT department. I was able to do all my things." No, they always complain in that because you can have 5 nines, but it's that 0.00001 when the system goes down for whatever reason, whether it be in your hands or not. That IT sucks. We're always down. I think it's the same mindset when it comes to cyber. It's like breaches are inevitable. Like we shield you as much as possible, and then we also have to have that conversation, whether it be you're the fractional CISO or the VCISO or whomever that excuse me, whoever's in charge of that, to have that conversation. Like when it goes down, we have to have a plan for business continuity, disaster preparedness, all that good stuff. Like I'm off duty for RAM. I'm doing a NIST CSF 2.0 right now, and it's having that conversation. Like, hey, we have all these things, all the ducks in a row. Like, let's schedule some time to do a tabletop. Let's schedule some time to do some red teaming. Have you talked to a pen tester yet? If not, I know a guy who can come in and do a black box or a gray box or whatever, to show you that even though we have all these things, here's the things that we found that still have to be patched or fixed, just based on like everything was good on Monday, but Wednesday somebody discovered something new. So the world is continuously revolving, right? Like things are changing from day to day. So it is a tough conversation to have. But before I land this plane, I have to plug something free of charge. So I had on Elizabeth Stevens. So she wrote a book called Building a Resilient Digital Future, a comprehensive guide to cyber risk monitoring. And it's going to be released soon. So there's an event, a Zoom event on September 26th, from Zero to Cyber Hero, a book launch and expert panel on building a resilient digital future. On this panel, I have 3 expert panelists. Guess who's on the panel? Your boy's on the panel. So definitely tune in September 26th. I'll put a link in the description, as well as I've already advertised it on LinkedIn, but say the date, September 26th, 2024 at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard. So 19 days from now. And I have a little piece in the book. I got my first little writing piece, right? Like it's very short and sweet. But I talk about the NIST CSF and all that good stuff, right? That's my bread and butter. Like I love that thing. That framework works so well across multiple different industries, right? So whether you're in healthcare or pure cyber or education or what have you, it's a good framework. So that's why I usually lead my consultations with a NIST CSF. Because then you're getting, like Chris said, that the governance, the instant response, like recovery, all that stuff's kind of baked in to get your mind going on, hey, what are we going to do to get this thing fixed? So I won't belabor the point, but definitely check out those 2 episodes. So the one with Miguel Clark, Armor Defense, and then the other one with Elizabeth Stevens. She is the CEO of DBS Cyber, as well as the author of Building a Resilient Digital Future, a comprehensive guide to cyber risk monitoring. And then come check out your boy. Free Zoom event. Come check me out. I'll be there with the other 2 amazing panelists as well. So, but yeah, I think we covered all bases on this one. I think this in itself could be an entire 2-hour session. We could sit here and punt this back and forth, just based upon our different experiences, right? Because you got the ism guys in the audience. You got the consultants in the audience, right? This panel, like I think we could really chop this one up. So this 30 minutes or so just doesn't do its surface, but definitely, if you have not been listening to us, we beat this drum a lot. Because every day, that's what we talk about. Every single day, we talk about there's a breach or some kind of incident, or like that has just been the 20s have been about that so far. So I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. So, but hit us up by all the websites that go by our name, the other side of the firewall, the other side of the FW, or ask CISSP. Hit me up personally. I'm at RyRy Security Guy. That's RYRY Security Guy. You can find me on all the platforms. And where can they find you, Chris?
You can find me on LinkedIn under Chris Abacon, last name spelled A Bacon.
And you, Daniel?
On LinkedIn under my name, Daniel Acevedo.
There it is. Stay safe, stay secure.